He found the patent for the sensor technology he had developed 15 years earlier among forgotten files in the company's legal department. That patent was currently being used in 80% of the company's main products. When they fired him as an, quote, outdated technology expert, he simply smiled and said, "Understood." With a single letter sent to the patent office, he shut down production at the $2.8 billion company. Engineers out there, have you ever tracked the patent rights of the technologies you've developed? Share your experiences in the comments. Sometimes our most valuable assets get overlooked. Thomas Anderson was 48 years old, and this was the story of how his 25-year engineering career ended and how a forgotten patent brought a $2.8 billion company to its knees. He had started at TechVision Electronics in 1998 as a young electronics engineer. Back then, the company was a small tech startup, and Thomas's job was to develop custom sensor systems that met customer demands. In the early years, they only produced basic sensor amplifiers and signal processors. But Thomas wasn't just someone who copied existing technologies. An MIT graduate with dual specialization in electronics engineering and mathematics, he had also written his doctoral thesis on digital signal processing. In his first 5 years, he had helped the company obtain 12 different technology patents. If you also work in technology and want to learn about protecting your intellectual property rights, don't forget to subscribe. You'll see in this story just how critical this can be. The turning point of Thomas's career came in 2003. The multi-purpose sensor technology he developed for the automotive industry worked with unprecedented precision and low cost. This technology could simultaneously measure temperature, pressure, vibration, and electromagnetic fields. Thomas's 2003 invention was a technology called multi-parameter environmental sensor array. While it seemed technically complex, it was actually based on a simple principle: combining multiple sensor types on a single chip to measure different environmental parameters simultaneously. This technology was revolutionary for its time. In the automotive industry, where normally 15-20 different sensors would be needed in a vehicle, Thomas's technology could reduce this number to 3 to 4. The cost savings were tremendous. He had filed the patent application in March 2003. Approval from the U.S. Patent Office came in 2004, patent number US 7,234,567. Patent holder, Thomas Anderson. License period, 20 years, until 2024. Innovation lovers, hit that like button. Real innovation is sometimes hidden in the simplest ideas. In the early years, this patent had become the company's main source of income. Thomas's technology began to be used not only at TechVision, but also at other companies through licensing agreements. Between 2005-2010, 70% of the company relied on this single patent.
In 2008, TechVision Electronics began to grow rapidly. What started as a 15-person startup had become a mid-sized company with 300 employees by 2012. Thomas was still working at the company, continuing to develop new technologies. But as the company grew, Thomas's 2003 invention began to be seen as old technology. Newly hired young engineers wanted to work on more modern, more cool technologies. Thomas's sensor technology was now labeled as a legacy system. Experienced workers, have your contributions ever been labeled as legacy? Drop a cap and emoji in the comments. You're not alone. The company went public in 2015. In 2018, a major private equity firm acquired TechVision. In 2020, a new CEO arrived, 36-year-old MBA graduate Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer's vision was digital transformation and next-generation innovation. Thomas tried to quietly adapt to these changes, but in new management's eyes, he was now an old-fashioned engineer. His ideas were no longer being heard in meetings. He couldn't participate in new projects. The real irony was this: Thomas's technology, developed in 2003, was still the foundation of the company's core business. 80% of the company's main products were built on this technology, but no one remembered this anymore. From 2021 onwards, the signs became more apparent for Thomas. The new CTO, David Kim, had called Thomas to his office for a modernization talk. He said Thomas's projects were no longer strategic priority and that the company needed to focus on future-oriented technologies. At the beginning of 2022, Thomas's team was downsized. His 3 assistants were transferred to other departments. Thomas's laboratory space was cut in half. His budget was reduced by 60%. Have you ever experienced such systematic exclusion? Subscribe to see how Thomas makes his comeback in the continuation of this story. The biggest sign came in mid-2022. The Human Resources Department asked all employees to fill out a career development form. The form included questions about retirement plans and transition timeline. Thomas understood very well what this meant. It was during this period that he decided to review his patent files one last time. While Thomas was making retirement plans, he began organizing his personal archive at home. He had documents, certificates, and project files collected over his 25-year career. For nostalgia's sake, he had also pulled out his old patent documents. When he saw his 2003 multi-parameter environmental sensor array patent, he curiously opened the company's current product catalog. What he saw shocked him. 18 of the 23 main products in the company's 2022 catalog were different applications of the technology from Thomas's 2003 patent. Automotive sensor series, industrial monitoring systems, smart home devices, medical equipment sensors, all.
If you're getting excited so far, don't forget to hit that like button. And guess what Thomas will do next? Even more surprising was that the company's next generation products they marketed were also improved versions of Thomas's old patent. When he examined the patent documents more carefully, he noticed a critical detail. The patent was still valid and would continue until 2024. And most importantly, the patent holder was still Thomas Anderson. They had never paid licensing fees for producing this technology because Thomas, as an employee of the company, was considered to have waived this right. But now the situation was different. On Monday morning, Thomas was called to the meeting room by HR manager Sarah Collins. In the room, CTO David Kim was also sitting next to Sarah. Sarah began speaking. She explained that the company was undergoing strategic restructuring and that some positions had become redundant. She said Thomas was one of those positions. David added that Thomas's field of work was now considered legacy technology, so it didn't fit the company's future vision. They needed to focus on new generation engineers. Thomas listened quietly. His 25 years of service had been labeled as legacy. He didn't object at all, didn't ask any questions. Sarah offered a generous severance package: 6 months' salary, health insurance, and a positive reference letter. Thomas stood up, shook hands with Sarah and David, and said one word: understood. David said, as a U.S. giveness to state. This calmness surprised both of them. There had been no fight. Have you ever experienced such a calm departure? Share your experience in the comments. With a flu emoji, sometimes the biggest reactions are given in silence. That evening, as Thomas sat at home, he fully realized the situation. When they fired him, they had actually terminated the patent holder of the fundamental technology of a $2.8 billion company. His first task was to call patent lawyer Jim Morrison. Jim was Thomas's old MIT friend and an expert in intellectual property law. "Jim, I have a very interesting case for you," Thomas said. "A company fired the patent holder and continues to use the patent." After Jim examined the documents, he understood the seriousness of the situation. While Thomas worked at the company, he was considered to have waived his patent rights under work-for-hire terms. But now that he no longer worked at the company, the patent rights returned to Thomas. Friends with experience in patent law, how do you evaluate this situation? Share your opinions in the comments. On Tuesday, panic began at TechVision's legal department. When patent attorney Lisa Chen saw the notification Thomas sent, she understood the seriousness of the situation. She immediately reviewed the company's patent portfolio. She saw that Thomas's 2003 patent was indeed used in most of the company's products, and no licensing agreement had been made for this patent. Lisa urgently informed CEO Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer initially thought this is a bluff from an old employee. But the legal team's analysis was clear.
Thomas's legal position was very strong. On Wednesday, an alarm came from the production department. They reported that they might have to stop production due to patent infringement. On Thursday morning, Jennifer Walsh called Thomas requesting an urgent meeting. Thomas politely declined. "Jennifer, I'm retired now. I can't deal with TechVision matters." "Thomas, please, this is a misunderstanding. Come back. We'll give you a better position." "Jennifer, I'm very happy with my current situation, but I can help with patent licensing matters, of course." Jennifer was silent. Patent licensing meant royalty payments. "How much do you want?" Thomas had his answer ready. 15 years of back royalty plus future license fee. "My patent lawyer will do the calculations." Those who respect Thomas for staying so calm drop a marred emoji. Jim Morrison's calculations were shocking. TechVision's revenue from using Thomas's patent over the last 15 years was $1.2 billion. According to industry standards, patent royalty would be between 3 to 5%. Even with a 3% calculation, TechVision owed Thomas $36 million in back royalty, plus $15, $20 million annually for future licensing. When Jennifer saw these figures, she went crazy. "This is unacceptable." But the legal team was clear. Thomas's position was legally very strong. If they went to court, they could pay even more. $36 million. Did this figure surprise you? Subscribe, because the end of the story is even more incredible. After 2 weeks of negotiation, they reached an agreement. 15 years of back royalty, $25 million lump sum, future license fee, $12 million annually until 2024. Thomas's consulting fee, $50,000 monthly. Thomas accepted this agreement, but he had one more condition. He wanted the title of Next Generation Innovation Expert at TechVision. After the agreement was signed, Thomas began working at TechVision as a part-time consultant. But now he was in a decision-maker position. As the patent holder, he had a say in the company's technology roadmap. His first suggestion was to create an improved version of the 2003 patent. "Let's adapt legacy technology to modern needs," he had said. Jennifer and David applauded this suggestion as brilliant innovation. They hadn't noticed the irony at all. Friends who noticed this irony.
2 years later, Thomas Anderson had earned $47 million from patent royalties. He had established his own technology consulting firm, Anderson Innovation Labs. TechVision was still using his old patent and paying licensing fees every year. But now Thomas's company had also become TechVision's competitor. Thomas's new company had hired 12 people from former TechVision engineers. Most were experienced engineers who had become fed up with the toxic atmosphere at the company after Thomas was fired. Did justice prevail? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you love these kinds of justice stories. Today, Thomas sits in his modern office working on new patent applications. 15 new patent certificates hang on his wall. On his desk sits a nameplate reading, "Thomas Anderson, founder and CTO, Anderson Innovation Labs." His phone rings. They're calling from TechVision, wanting technical consultation. Thomas smiles. "Sure, my hourly rate is $500. Advance payment required." Sometimes forgotten things are the most valuable treasures. What did this story make you think? Do you have experience with patents and intellectual property? Share your ideas in the comments with a sync emoji. And if you have engineer friends who develop indispensable technologies in their fields, don't forget to share this video, because every engineer should know these rights. If you love these kinds of workplace justice stories, subscribe and turn on notifications. We prepare new stories for you every week.